Question number 4, Jacinda Ardern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Building and Housing and asks, what evidence or research led to his decision to change pool safety legislation that has been in place in New Zealand for well over 20 years?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, the evidence and research to change the pool safety legislation was contained in an announcement by the then Minister, Shane Jones, in early 2008, when he announced a review was needed and published a substantive report. Mr. Jones said at the time that the Act was outdated, that compliance was inconsistent between councils, that Labor wanted to make the Act more flexible, and that it needed to reflect modern house design. I have difficulty disagreeing with Mr. Jones.
Order. Supplementary question, Jacinda Ardern. Order. Order.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question.
Did he mislead Parliament with his estimates provided to the Parliament alongside his bill, given that this morning the Children's Commissioner called the numbers that he has used inaccurate and stated that the net effects of the law he has drafted is likely to see an increase and not a decrease in the number of children who will drown?
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, the numbers I provided was in the advice provided by the Ministry. And the reason I have confidence that this bill will actually increase the safety of our swimming pools is because if we look at the reports of coroners, the issue is non-compliance with the current law, and the reality is that many councils have no requirement for regular inspections. This bill makes two important changes. It requires councils to regularly inspect the fencing, and secondly, it requires those that are constructing pools to actually notify the owners of their legal obligations.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Jacinda Ardern.
Who is right? Him and the pool industry, who want 5 yearly inspections rather than the current 3 yearly inspections, or those who have argued against his proposed changes, including Water Safety New Zealand, Plunkett, Safe Kids, the Children's Commissioner, and even Wellington City Council, who he claims he is trying to help?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, the member is incorrect. The current law does not require councils to regularly inspect pools. In fact, 30 of our current councils has advised my ministry that they have no program for regular inspection. And that is why our view is that there should be regular inspections. There's a debate between the Select Committee as to whether that should be 3 yearly or 5 yearly. I would invite the Select Committee to hear the evidence and to ensure that we have a regime that makes our pools as safe as possible.
That's not what you're doing.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Jacinda Ardern.
How many times has he or his department met with the pool industry regarding these reforms?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
I cannot advise the number of times that my ministry met with them. I suspect that the previous Minister, Shane Jones, who announced the policy, probably did meet with the pool industry. I know at the time the Labor caucus in 2008 supported Mr. Jones.
Point of order, Jacinda.
Mr. Speaker, I asked how many he, as the Minister who has drafted this legislation, has met with the pool industry.
I'm going to invite the member to ask that question, but you also asked, as I recall the question, how many times has he or his officials met? And he certainly answered it. Order. He certainly answered immediately. He couldn't answer on behalf of his officials. If the member wants an additional supplementary to ask the very first question about how many times the minister's met with the industry, I give the opportunity to Jacinda.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Jacinda Ardern.
Can he confirm that the pool industry has lobbied his government, who's presided over these changes over the last 7 years, to make these changes because, according to an email from the master pool builders, they believe it will reverse the downturn in pool construction?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, some of the key policy decisions on this issue was actually announced by Shane Jones. and I cannot comment how many times the then Labor government met with the industry. I can advise the member that in terms of my own position, I have met with both paediatricians and advocates for child safety, and I've also met with people in the pool industry. And I just simply invite members who are concerned to let the Select Committee do a good job of ensuring that we've got practical law, because, for instance, I don't think it's sensible at the moment that a lockable pool cover on a spa pool, I actually think is a sensible way for managing child safety, rather than the current law that requires a fence around such an arrangement.
Question. Order. Question number 5.